Check, check. Hello, hello, everyone. Just making sure I don't get echoes. Echoes. I don't want echoes. Everybody hear me out there? And my guitar. You know the routine. You've been on before. Check it out. Okay, let me clue in. See who's here. And let's hope the audio works. Who is here? Tony, hey. Tony's always here. He's my main man. He's got my back. He's always here. And if I'm not mistaken, as I said before, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's like 9 o'clock where he is, 9 o'clock at night. Thank you, Tony. All good at the moment. Scott's here. Hey, buddy. Good to see you. Good to hear you. All that stuff. I hope everybody's doing well still with the state of affairs we're in. We're all banded together in this weird moment. And so far, so good. At our end. So I hope that's true for you as well. Okay. I'm going to put this up here. Hold on a second. No, I'll wait. I feel like Santa. I'll wait till I give you a little treat later on in the episode. In this episode. Anyway, let's get ourselves going. It's a little after 5 here in the Maritimes. Excuse me. And we shall be continuing, as you know, with one perspective on how chords are created. But before I do that, you know I've been promoting certain books that I've been reading. And this guy in particular has been quite prominent recently in my world. This is like my second read through. But I was thinking of you guys last session. You know, sometimes I leave these sessions and I go, did I take them down a rabbit hole? Did I talk too much about something that made their head spin? Did I, in fact, make something perhaps feel harder than it actually is? Because I know I do, and I'm guilty of it. I go into great detail sometimes trying to explain things with words. You know, the what that can look like for someone listening is, I'm overwhelmed. Again, if you're on my website, www.dempsterguitarstudio.com, you'll notice that the main theme of that site is to help avoid the overwhelm. So I was thinking to myself, like, did I do that? And I would like your feedback on that, because if I did, then I need to change the way I'm presenting some ideas to you. Now, having said that, and by the way, I have a thick skin, so if you thought last session or any of them really didn't hit home for you, I sort of failed you in some manner, I'd like to hear about that. Don't hold it back. In order for me to get better, I need to hear it. If it was fine, leave it alone. I'm glad that it was. If you felt it was challenging to listen to, but you're okay with the challenge, that's cool. It's only when you're feeling, when you left the session, you felt more confused than when you came in. I don't want that to happen. So in order for me to refine how I speak on these things, I need to hear your feedback. So let me know that. But I was thinking about that at the end of the last session. And going through this book again, thinking, you know what, there's perspectives in here that make a lot of sense to me. And I thought, I came across one not far into the book, and I just thought I would speak on it. Because I know I talk a lot about, you know what, if something's important enough for you to do it, you're going to do it. So when people come to me and say, oh, I want to do this in guitar, or I want to do that, whatever it might be, doesn't matter. I'm going to read something to you shortly. Whatever it might be. I've often said that there's a big gap between what people say they want to accomplish and what they're willing to put in to accomplish it. And everybody's different. My ability to do things like that only got better once I went through the process and saw the result that comes from it. Not necessarily right away, which is a stickler for a lot of people. Some of the results that you would see from the way we're thinking about stuff on the guitar don't happen right away. They sort of filter in like osmosis into your body, into your mind. And if you're the kind of person who needs immediate now result, I have no shame in saying I may not be the best teacher for you, because I am a person who likes to instill an idea or a perspective, get you to, as I say, go into the sandbox and play around with it, which is harder than it sounds to do for a lot of people, but you've got to play around with it. And in doing so, elements of that concept will then stick on you in a manner that's only unique to you. I might have said the concept and described it, but you took it and made it your own. That process alone is so critical in feeling like you're a guitar player. If, on the other hand, you're always waiting for other people just to take your hand and show you what to do, I'm not that guy. I've done it. I don't enjoy it. and I don't think the student benefits long-term from it. Is there a place for it? Yes, of course there is. There are times when that's a very practical thing to do. But, I'm old enough to know now, for me, I'm long since past that. So I want to make sure that I'm delivering concepts to you that you have a sense, if you take those away and you start playing in the sandbox with them, you're going to get some juice out of that in a way that's going to last long term. That's my goal. And in doing that, will help you to connect other ideas to that main one that you learned about much more easily than if you're just getting them randomly. So that's my game. So, if you feel you want to send me some feedback on what I've been doing, I'd love to hear from you, good, bad, or otherwise. I'll just put that out there. Anyway, on the topic of, what it takes to get stuff done on this silly instrument, one area in this book talks about the big D word, discipline, and it speaks of it as a myth, one of several other myths that we hold in our culture about what it takes to be successful at anything. And the general idea would be, if you want to be good at guitar, you just have to be disciplined. You have to stick with it, and you have to, and this book will argue that that's actually a myth. So here's a very short perspective on discipline from that point of view. It's just a one-sentence thing. It says, success is actually a short race, a sprint fueled by discipline, so we still need some of that, but just long enough for habit to kick in and take over, which I love. What I'm trying to help you do, if I break that sentence apart, is yes, there has to be a level of discipline, but your whole life doesn't have to be discipline on guitar in order to get good. You just have to have enough of it to get the steam engine rolling, so to speak. And then once it's rolling, you have to cultivate the habit of keeping it rolling. And it's the habit, it's that cultivation of frequency. You come to the idea of building chords frequently. You just don't listen to me bark about it on one day and then not think on it for the next 4 or 5 months. That won't cut it. You have to think on it, especially if it's not very clear to you. So if I say, and we'll go over this again, if I say, okay, yeah, your major chord comes from the 1, the 3, and the 5 of a major scale, and you have a vague sense of what that really means, you need to play in the sandbox. Not only today for 5 or 10 minutes, but ideally tomorrow and the day after that and the day after that. And the reality of learning a new skill or a new idea, according to the research, is that it will take you, hold on a sec. It will take you, on average, between 1 and 3 months to develop a comfort with it. That's when the skill is starting to settle in. So if you're the person who needs immediacy in general, those ideas will not be very attractive to you. Maybe you'll cultivate some patience with regards to that. But I wanted to raise the issue because I recognize that some of you are here because you're looking for, something handy-dandy that I can throw at you. And there will be times when that is absolutely possible and doable and necessary. But so much of any good art and good craft requires a little discipline, requires exploration. It requires replication in terms of learning other people's music. It requires inspiration. Lots of shuns that can happen, that should take place for you to feel like you're a player. And so I'm going to keep on commenting on that periodically because I think it's important for you to hear that all of us that feel like we play, it came about usually because we found a music that was inspiring to us. We wanted to play it. And then from that diving board, we were motivated. I guess I'm speaking more specifically about me. I was motivated then to want to learn more about the craft. And that's where these kinds of discussions start to become important. You're not just making the thing on the fretboard because the song you're playing told you to make that thing. You actually have an understanding of what the person who wrote the song knew about in order to make the thing originally. It's that sort of thinking. You're getting into the mind of the composer or the songwriter or the painter, whoever, whatever. You're getting a glimpse of that. And that's where this stuff comes in. So I hope this stuff is of value from that point of view. It's not frivolous. It's day-to-day practical stuff. It just always seems to get couched in the veil of hard to think about, abstract, mystical, blah, blah, blah. And it isn't that at all. It's absolutely true that the first, third, and fifth of the major scale makes a major chord. And then from that point on, we can convert that very same chord into other ones using some simple formulas. So today, we're carrying on from where we left off on the major chord, the triads. And today we're hitting things called seventh chords. Cool. So anyway, there's my little intro. I'm just going to check the any of the comments here. By the way, I've ordered that. Oh, good. Someone's got the book ordered. The One Thing. The One Thing. Yeah, there's a little tiny word under it, Tony. I'll just show it to you here. And I have to change screens here to make sure I see what I'm doing. You see it there? The One Thing. And by the way, I am not sponsored to promote this. This is just me saying this is one hell of a good book. I think it was primarily driven and intended for business, people in small business or business in general to work. But when you read it, it's really a commentary on all skills and craft, which is really cool. So that's good. The book has good reviews. Good. No problem on what you're doing. Have had quite a good 6-string player. Hey, bud, checking in. Good to see you. Jerry's here. Awesome. Jerry, did you get your chords? Did you get all those chords I sent you? Jerry's working with me right now online, and we're working on Somewhere Over the Rainbow. So let me know. Okay, let's dig into this. So I'm going to move back here. So here's what we did last Wednesday. This is very simple. If I had to sum it up, here's what it looks like. I'm going to cover my face up right now. Boom. Now, while you're looking at that, I'll just play, some of that out. So here's the practicality of these things. If I have a triad, which is a 3-note chord, and you must be clear that, yes, you can just play those 3 notes, but very often any one of those notes tends to get repeated or duplicated. That way you have a bigger, fatter, a fuller chord that you can strum around the campfire very easily. But for this demonstration, I wasn't doing that. I was just taking like the skeleton of the chord. So let's say I take a G major chord, and I've been told that the major chord can be built from the first, the third, and the fifth degree of a major scale, and in this case it would be the G major scale, because chords come from scales. And I go and grab the first, third, and fifth. Now I need to be aware of what those are. Well, clearly, I hope, the first is the G note. And second to that is you need to be aware how chords are made. You grab one note, let's say the first G. You skip the second note, which is an A, and you use the third note, which is a B. and then you skip the fourth note, which is a C, and you grab the fifth note, which is a D. So in the case of a G major chord, you need a G, a B, and a D. Make sense? Okay, let me put that away. Here's a G, a B, and a D. There's a G. Let me know if you hear the guitar, okay? A G, a B, and a D. Those three notes right there. They're still in this chord, or in this version of it. And all I've done is reduced both of those down to three simple notes, G, B, D. Now, if I go back to the formula, let me pull it back up here. Whoop. Easy enough. I can build a G chord, and if I know my notes on the fretboard, I can build that G chord anywhere I want on the fretboard. Very quickly then, I can recall that in order to make a G minor chord, not G major now, G minor, all I have to do is locate the third of the major chord and flatten it, which if you recall, the term flat is referencing the fact that it's an action that you were taking. You're taking whatever the note is and you're lowering it in pitch by 1 fret. So I'm going to do that. But to do that, of these three notes, I need to know where the third is. And ideally that it's a B. So that's where your note knowledge on the fretboard comes in handy, i.e. there's a connection right there. Knowing the scale that the chord comes from, at least one of them, that's a connection there. So I locate the B note, or the third, and it happens to be here under my second finger. One of these days I'll have a setup where I can have a second camera and I can zoom right in on this for you. But I'm going to lower that note. I'm going to physically do it right now with my second finger. Oh, that's awkward. I can't do that. But in theory, that's what it would look like. Well, once you experience that tremendous discomfort, you go, okay, that's not going to work. I'm just going to take the same notes and refinger the thing. So then what you can do is take your first finger, play the original D. That was the root. The new B flat note is the third, or the flat third we call it. And then the fifth stayed where it's supposed to, which is, this was the fifth. The root stayed where it had to go. So now we get this new sound. Now, whether you've played a G minor before, maybe you haven't, but you have now a conceptual idea of how you can get to it from a major scale, or from a major chord that was derived from a major scale. Don't anyone ever tell you, as a guitarist, don't bother with the major scale. All you need is minor pentatonic and you're good. Yes and no. To play and do nothing but play sort of blindly and never knowing what you're doing? Yes. No, if you want to have a fuller understanding of what you're doing and an explanation of why it works, you will never get that from a minor pentatonic scale. You will always get it from the major scale, because theory, I call it analysis or language, is always presented to us with reference to the major scale. So if you don't have control over that, you're not able to make these kinds of connections. That, why is this called a flat third for the minor chord? Flat, what? What's a third? Etc., etc. That language comes from the major scale. Other scales adopt it based on the major scale. Okay, enough of that. And then I'll take it one step further, and I could take the minor chord, G minor, and I could turn it into a funky sound called a diminished chord. Well, that's easy enough. The root stays where it is, that's the 1. The flat 3 that we just created stays where it is. And then I have to figure out where's the 5th. Well, it's a D. It's on the 2nd string, 3rd fret, and I'm going to lower it by 1 fret. That's all I do. So I have G, B flat, sorry, gotta get my finger on it, and D. Interesting sound. In and of itself, you may think, it's kind of ugly, but it has its place. Often diminished chords are used as transition chords, stepping stones, if you will, between chords. They have a bit of an ambiguous sound. So, G major, G minor, G diminished. If I come back to G major for a second, I could go one chord further, which I failed to introduce to you the other day, and that is the augmented chord. So there are actually 4. Why I missed that, I don't know. Just did. Major, minor, diminished, augmented. The augmented is, I don't have an image of it, but it won't be hard for you to comprehend. The formula for it is the 1, the 3, and the sharp 5 of the original G major chord. Well, we have 1, 3, 5, so there's the 5th, that's the D note, and I have to sharpen it. So if you're up on that language, you know that sharpening means raise the note, in this case a D, in pitch by 1 fret, up in pitch. That means up in sound. It doesn't mean physical direction that you're moving here. Just to demonstrate that. There's the same D. I'm about to move up 1 fret. Of course, relative to the floor, I just moved down. That has nothing to do with it. People get confused about this all the time. Up 1 fret just means that. The sound should go up. The pitch, that's what sound is referencing, should go up by 1 fret. So here's what we get. Take the G, take that D, move it up. That's very awkward, but I could play it. That's a cool sound. I don't normally finger it that way. I will take 1 finger and grab the D sharp, and the B, and then I'll add the G back in. So it looks like a small portion of an F chord. And by the way, that sounds quite unique, because if any of you recall a commercial about a spray paint company called Tremclad, I think it was a spray paint company. Leave it to Tremclad. That thing, the first chord you hear in that commercial is an augmented chord. It's a nice sound to kind of get something going. I was taught when I learned this sound that it, as a reminder to me what it sounds like, think of, now I'm aging myself here, when I went to see the movie Bambi as a kid, there's a scene where the mother of Bambi comes through a fog in the forest, just kind of ghostly comes out of the fog, and that's what this sound has always reminded me of. It has that haunting, revealing quality to it, and that's something you might want to start thinking about, by the way, as you delve into chords, should you be so interested, that they're not just shapes and they're not just sounds, they're emotions, they're colors. And if you see a major chord, lots of people hear it, lots of people interpret it as a happy sound. You play a minor chord, lots of people interpret that as a sad sound. It's not necessarily true, but on average, that's the general interpretation. When you play an augmented sound, it has, to me, a veil, ghosty quality to it. Words fail me. Diminished chords have a very, they're like a question mark to me. They don't have a center, if that makes any sense to you. Which I guess is why they can be used so easily and freely in a lot of compositions. So that's all we did last week, is we took the notion of a major chord derived from a major scale and we started to convert it based on chord formulas. Now you walk into any music shop and you purchase for yourself a chord poster, there's lots of them, lots of people use them, there's a very high likelihood that on that poster, these kinds of formulas are going to be presented to you for just about, well, any number of chords. So if you're looking at it, at least now you have a sense of where that language is coming from, and that it's not some weird esoteric thing. It's a day-by-day normal discussion of how a chord is built. A minor chord is the 1, flat 3, and 5 of, you can think of it, of a major scale. The diminished chord is a 1, flat 3, flat 5 of the major scale. Later on, it will be true that you can talk about minor chords as coming from a minor scale. That's true. It's also true that you can talk about diminished chords as coming from a diminished scale. But that's too elaborate right now. I want you to get a very strong impression that there's nothing you're looking at on that screen that cannot be derived fundamentally from the major scale. That's why I put so much emphasis on it. Okay, let's make sure everybody's good with that, and then I'm moving on to the next section. I'm going to change screens here. Jerry's here. Yes, he's got it. Good. Tony's, yep, good. All right. And it's cool. Got that. And we're good. Okay. Let me move back then. Let's see. I'm going to show you a sheet that I put together. It's a cheat sheet that I put together a while back that I use with a lot of students to kind of summarize on one page a lot of this language stuff. And so let me just show it to you here. I'll cue it up. There it is. Just going to get rid of my guitar for a sec. Now there's a lot of information on that one little sheet. Enough information when you look at it to go, oh my, how does anybody learn this stuff? Well, you don't learn it all at once, but you can use the sheet as a reference. But what I do want to draw your attention to is when you're looking at that sheet, if you go to the lower left corner of it, you can see that I've got these chord formulas drafted out. You can see that I've got them here. The major chord is 1, 3, 5, and today if you want to include it as a major 7, then you add the 7th note from the scale. Minor chord, 1, flat 3, and 5. If you want a minor 7, you add a flat 7 to it. Augmented chord, I just talked about that, 1, 3, sharp 5. Diminished chord, we've talked about that, 1, flat 3, flat 5. And the dominant 7, 1, 3, 5, flat 7. Very simple things. All of it coming from that crazy business you see above. All 12 keys of our musical system exist there. And it's scary to look at. But if you can do whatever you need to do in one key, let's go to the top of that image where you can see the key of C at the very top. It has A minor written beside it. Please ignore that. But if you read left to right, you can see the notes of C major. They go C, D, E, F, G, A, B, then another C. And all kinds of things are jammed into this chart, not all of which we need to worry about today. But if you want to build a C major chord, you're going to need the 1, which is a C note, the 3, which is an E note, and the 5, which is a G. Easy. If you want to build, let's go right to the bottom of the chart and go to the key that is B flat, B with a smaller case B beside it. Again, ignore the G minor, the GM in brackets. Here are the notes of the key of B flat. You've got a B flat, a C, a D, an E flat, an F, a G, an A, and a B flat. You want a B flat major chord, you got to grab the B flat note, you got to grab a D, and you got to grab, excuse me, an F. That's the 1, 3, and 5. Once you get that stuff in place, you could create any of those chords. If I pull that up, put it right on top, you can create any of these that you want. So if you want a B flat major chord, now you know how to get it. You know where it comes from. And from there, you can use the formula to convert it into B flat minor if you want to, or B flat diminished, or even B flat augmented. Let's go to the top of the picture. Let's look for the key of G. It should be the second key from the top of that big picture. Here are the notes in the key of G. G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and G. So when somebody says to you, let's play in the key of G, eventually, over time, as you get experience with it, you automatically remember that all Fs are sharp in the key of G. Otherwise, it doesn't sound like a major key. It sounds like something else. And to make a G major chord, I need G, I need B, and I need D. But one day, somebody woke up and said, why should we stop with the first and the third and the fifth? Why don't we just go right and add the seventh? And we did. So now we have a G, a B, a D, and an F sharp. And that's our starting point. And the chord becomes, I'm going to get rid of this for a sec. The chord becomes a G major 7 chord. That's at the top of our chart right there. Okay, so as nature would have it, in order for me to continue talking comfortably without squirreling and fidgeting, I have to do a quick bathroom run. So I'm going to put up a little sign here that says I'll be back in 5 minutes. So give me less than that and I'll be right back and we'll continue our discussion. You can make as much fun of me, and the interwebs as well can make as much fun of me as you need to, but that's just reality. I'll be back in 5 minutes. See, that was even less than 5 minutes. Let me go back here. Okay. Thanks for your patience. I appreciate it. So, your major 7 chord formula is 1, 3, 5, 7. I'm just going to get rid of that, and then we're going to go to the guitar. So if you have a guitar with you, you might as well play along. You never know. You might have an insight. So let's go in 5. We'll do this using the key of G. And once again, the cheat sheet is there for you. I'm going to give you a link very shortly. If you want it, you can download it. Often when I get them for students that are live, I laminate it because I like to write marker stuff on it, and then I can erase it off with a dry erase and all that sort of stuff. That's up to you. But I will leave you a link in the chat, and you can download that for your use and abuse it as you see fit. And that's all well and good. So, first I'll just make sure everybody can hear the guitar. Hey, Stephen, good stuff here. Making sense slowly, real slowly. Well, yeah, I'm glad. That's good, Sean. If it is happening, had that with the 12 key. Yep, same idea. If you got it with that, good. I'm just always making it available, Tony. That's the thing. Similar to suspended coronas to coronas to resolve to something. Is this correct? I'm going to come back to that a little later, Tony. Remind me of it. I like slow, Sean. I know not everybody does, but I think slow, like a slow cooker, helps really marinate the idea. You can cook things faster, of course, but there's just something texturally different about how things are cooked in a slow cooker. They're just more, they stick to your ribs better. I don't know what it is. It's just different. So I'm glad that that's happening. Awesome. Let's go back here. Okay. So for a G major 7 chord, you have to think about the G major scale. You need the 1, and you have to think about the formula. All of this is just a memorized thing. Or you can reference it on the cheat sheet. I need the 1, the 3, the 5, and the 7 of the major scale. Well, what's the 1? It's G. What's the 3? G, B. It's a D. What's the 5? G, B, D, E, F. G, B, D, excuse me. G, B, D. And then what's the 7th? If you either walk it through or look at the chart, you'll end up saying, well, it's F. Many people will say it's F. And so the letter is correct. They don't have any trouble getting the letter correct. The next level of stuff that we would want to be discussing are what are called key signatures. Excuse me. And in the key of G, all Fs are not just F. They are actually raised in pitch by 1 fret to the note F sharp. Why is that? The chord formula, the scale formula for the major scale, the interval formula for it, tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone, which I hope you know well, will answer why that has to happen, because we're fitting those notes to line up with that formula so that we get this sound. If I don't sharpen the F, that 7th note, here's what I get. It's still a scale. It's something else. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not the G major scale. There's the F natural. Here's what it should sound like. And then resolve to the final G. So we need the 1. Then I go 1, 2, 3. Oh, we need the B. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, I need the D. And I need the F sharp. I can't put them all together on one string, so I have to put them all together over a bunch of strings. Here's a very common way to play a G major 7 chord. Sounds kind of jazzy. Not that one, excuse me. I want, where am I going to go? I want, can I want that? Yeah, I'll do this one up high. It'll make more sense. Might be hard if you're just on acoustic. This is quite a reach. You're getting way up, but you don't have to play a beautiful chord. You just have to be aware of the mechanism of it. Okay. So where is the G in this chord? This is where fretboard knowledge, if you think on this stuff frequently, that's how you solidify it better. I've said this many times before. Just randomly rehearsing notes like this is E, that's F sharp, that's G, that's A. Okay, do that. But I find in the midst of using a real musical device, like a chord, if you're just making the shape and that's the end of the story, that's step 1. But make the shape and then spend a moment just identifying what some of those notes are that are in there. Okay, keep things short. There's the root. That's the G note. What's the third? G, A. I need a B. Where's the B? Oh, it's under my pinky on the second string at the 12th fret. Here's a connection moment. I should call these something special when these, like a teachable moment. Here's a connection moment. Why do the double dots exist on your fretboard? They're a visual reminder that the open string you started with, in this case the second string, is a B. And when you come to the very next B along that string, it won't happen until you hit the 12th fret. So that's an octave of the original B. Oh yeah, you'd be amazed how many people don't think about things like that. But that's a good connection to help you understand a little bit of what's going on in your fretboard. So we have G, B, where's the D? Same thing. It's on the 4th string, an octave higher than the open. I just played a D major scale for you there, just to show you that. And where's the F sharp? It's under my second finger on the 3rd string, 11th fret. How do I know that that's an F sharp? Well, isn't the note right beside it a G, because I'm at the 12th fret, an octave higher than the G I started with? If I asked you, what's the name of this note? Sorry, this guy. Do you really need to do this? G, A, and B, and C, and D, and E, and that's an F. So that must, oh, it's F sharp. And you're absolutely right. It is F sharp. But did you have to go all the way down there to figure it out? Couldn't you just use your knowledge of the function of the 12th fret and go backwards? At some point, as you work your way up a fretboard, it begins to make more sense to work from another vantage point up the fretboard and go down, thinking backwards, which is a little tricky. But it's well worth cultivating that ability because it's just quicker. It's more time efficient. Anyway, you put all that together and here you go. Now, I've purposely not given you the diagrams for this. If you're desperate for the pictures, I will send you some pictures. But I would rather you sit with me right now with your guitar and just go, okay, yeah, I can see that that's a G. I'm not just playing this chord from the 10th fret of the guitar. I can see that that's a G. I can see that that's a B. Oh yeah, and that's a D. F, oh my gosh, yeah. It's those little tiny insights that make you go, my, it's not just a shape anymore. It's a cluster of individual notes, and their location makes the shape. Okay, that's our starting point. Let's go back to our image right here. Where are you? There you are. Cue that up. Now, according to this, you could make a dominant 7th chord, in this case a G, dominant 7th chord, otherwise known as G7. Remember, we've talked about this. We're technically supposed to say G dominant 7. It's just too much. We just say G7. And that has a specific formula. And the terms that you're looking at, the 1, the 3, the 5, and the flat 7, only make sense with reference to the original G major scale. If you have it in your head, the G major scale is still there. It's G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. So what's the 1? G. What's the 3? B. What's the 5? D. What's the flat 7? Well, what is the regular, if you wish to call it that, the regular 7 in the major scale? It's F sharp. And we have this F sharp inside this starting chord. It's on the 3rd string, 2nd fret. And by the way, I'm only playing the inside 4 strings. I'm not playing the 6th string and I'm not playing the 1st string. Now, I have to take that F sharp and watch what I do with it. I'm going to take it and flat it. That's the action I'm taking by 1 fret lower in pitch. When you go lower in pitch, you're moving away from your guts. When you're going higher in pitch, you're moving toward your guts. So here are my guts, and I'm moving away from them. If I'm moving from down here toward my guts, I'm going higher in pitch. So I'm going from F sharp, flatten that F sharp by 1 pitch, and I get to land on the note F, or F natural. It's not sharpened, it's not flat. It's the natural state of that letter, F natural. When you do that in the context of the original chord, which is, very, very pretty sound, by the way. If I remove the F sharp, the F natural is already naturally located. That's a coincidence in those terms, natural. Under my first finger. It was already there. Even when I had this second finger down, the F was already underneath it. So now I'm exposing the F by removing the F sharp. Now many of you, if you make that shape, again, I wish I had great ways to give you close-ups here, but I'm not sophisticated enough yet in all the technology. It's a very common bar chord form. Like, for example, that's a C7 chord. Here's a B flat 7. They all sound the same. D7, they're just changing pitch. So G7, which is just this. That's just another way of playing it. I could go, let's see, G, B, D. That's a G7. I'm only using 3 notes there. There's a bit of a trick. I took the 5th away because I don't need it. It's a runt note. I'll talk about that in subsequent sessions. That's a G7, right? Okay, easy enough. Let's go back. Excuse me. And bring this up. From that dominant 7 shape, I could now learn about another type of 7th chord called the minor 7th chord. And if you look, for example, if you look at the starting point again, the major 7 chord, in order to get to the dominant 7 type of chord, I only had to change one of the notes. I had to make F go to F sharp, which is the flats. I had to make F sharp go to F, and the F is the flat 7 version of the F sharp. I hope that makes sense. All dependent on the original chord formula, which is dependent on the scale that it came from. Everything gets backtracked to the major scale. We come to the minor 7. The only difference between a minor 7 chord and a dominant 7 chord is the flat 3rd. Couldn't be more simple. So you've already got a starting point. The trick here is, now let me get rid of this. So there's the major 7 chord. Nice sound. I remove the second finger and expose the new F note underneath my first finger. And I get that bluesy, dominant 7 sound that's so often used in blues music. That sound, right? The dominant 7th sound. Okay. In order to make this a minor 7 from the dominant 7, I need to flatten the 3rd. Again, it's an action I'm taking. Wherever the 3rd is in this chord, I'm going to take it and flatten it. So where is it? This is, I won't get the mic in the way here. This is where you have to think a little bit about the structure of what's going on. So here's what you've got. The G is there, that's the 1. The third, where is it? Well, what's the note? Sometimes it helps if you can just name the note, in which case you either go back to the major scale to figure out what it was to start with. A B it was. So I'm looking for a B note in that cluster. Is there one? Yes. Happens to be under my pinky on the 2nd string at the 12th fret. Okay, it's a little hard when I do that, but it gets a little more easy to see there. That B note needs to go from what it is down 1 fret. I have now flattened the B to what you could call the flatted third. This was the original third, the regular 3. Now I have the flatted 3. If I put everything back and do that action, sorry I keep hitting the mic here with my strumming hand. If I'm going to lower that down, I'm not going to take that pinky and try to lower it. That's anatomically very awkward. Perhaps I'll just use that 2nd finger and put it where the note's going to be and then remove the pinky. I have now flattened it down to B flat. This is an example of where the note you end up with when you do this flattening action is a flat note, but it's totally coincidental. There's no, don't even look for a, oh, this is cool. When you flat the note, it'll be a flat note. What happens when you flatten a G double sharp? You get G sharp. What happens when you flat G sharp? You get G. None of those are flat notes. What happens when you flatten the G? It becomes G flat. So you can't rely on a connection there. It would be spurious of you to do so. Okay, so here's what I've got. Sorry. So here was the original chord, G major 7, very nice, pleasant sound. Saturday afternoon nap kind of sound. Here's the dominant 7th chord. Maybe I'll stay down here. That's blues. And then that got converted into minor 7. It's just comfort food to me. And it's a very common shape. You're probably already familiar with it if you play like C minor 7 or D minor 7. Okay, the shape could be familiar. No big deal for you. But how the shape comes about, what we're talking about is one perspective of that. Fundamentally, how did it come about? It came about from the major scale. Yeah, Steve, we're getting that. You keep harping on it. Stop harping on it. No, I need to keep harping on it. It's important. Let's take this one step further. Minor 7 chord. If you have to keep the root, by the way. The G has to stay. I hope that's no surprise to you. If you start messing around with the root note and you change it to some other note, you're changing the foundation of the chord, fundamentally. There are such things as rootless chords, and in which cases they can often come about by actually changing the root note 1 fret higher or lower, and that's an extension within the chord. And when you look down at the chord, even if it's a G something chord, there's no G in it, but all the rest of the necessary notes are in it. That's a bit weird, I know, but it does occur. But for our purpose, I hope it just makes sense that you have to maintain the G note. So we now have, I'm going to make the chord in a moment, but the chord itself is a mouthful. Minor 7, flat 5. It's common in guitar world, but it's not common for a lot of, I would call, recreation players, because it's not included in the music that they play. But it's a very, 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 very common chord structure. And so if you come upon it in a chord book, and you're thinking, oh, I'm not going to buy this because it's got these weird chords in it, I wouldn't do that. I'd buy it anyway. This would give you a great opportunity to learn some new sounds and learn some new fingering and take on a little tiny challenge of expanding your chord vocabulary. That's what we call it. So we have a minor 7 chord, and to get to a minor 7 flat 5, well, if you think of most chords that look and sound like long and complicated, many times they're just, well, almost all the time, they're just a recipe to do something to the basic chord. So you could see minor 7 flat 5 as being translated into, take a minor 7 chord, Stephen, and flatten the 5th of it. That's what that chord symbol is telling you to do. It's a recipe. Take 2 eggs and throw in a pinch of salt. It's that sort of thinking. Take a minor 7 chord, which you already know, and flatten the 5th. So what you need to know, obviously, OBS successful. Okay, good. Yeah, system frozen. I hear that. I just got notification. 6-string player. It tells me that we should be reconnected again. I keep losing you. Yeah, it's not me. It's system I'm using here, but that looks good. Yep, lost you. Tell me if we're back now. I can tell that I got lost. I like the smiley faces, though. Let's see if I refresh the page, if I don't mess anything up here. Are we back? Can you see me now and hear me now and all that stuff? Let me know, guys. That was not me. Oh, it's doing it again. It's crazy. I'm just trying to refresh the page. Let me know if I'm getting you guys back. No. Okay. Okay. Lost me. I got back now. Good. Okay. I don't know what happened there. That was I got a message from the streaming software that I use that it lost the connection and tried several times to reconnect. So we're back now, but a 6-string player had to leave. Sorry about that, brother. Thank you for being here, though. And looks like now we have a good connection. So I'm going to go back to where I left off. Okay. And I'm just going to double check my sound again. Hold on. That's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. I don't need these. All right. Pull this up. We're almost done, so that's good. So coming back to that minor 7 flat 5, you'll already have the minor 7 portion of the chord built. Now you need to know where the 5th is. This is where looking down on chords, if over time, and it's a rehearsed thing, you start to see the notes as intervals from the root. You'll be able to, see if I can move this a bit. No, not that, this. Move this up a bit. So you won't see my face, but you'll see my fingers. Maybe I can keep going. Hold on. I'll just leave that portion right there. And you can see my mouth move. How exciting. Okay. Then once I'm looking at this, I realize I've got the root here. And it's a G. What's the 5th note? G, B, D. D. Ah, there it is there. That's the D note. There's only one of them in this particular structure. And it has to get flatted. Well, that's a very awkward formation for it. You could do it. Here's the sound of it. But what I would do is reverse these 2 fingers. It just makes a bit more sense. Minor 7 chord with a flat 5. So you just do what the formula says. Now there are other 7th chords. There's minor major 7 chords. There's augmented 7 chords. There's lots of different 7 chords, but these are the fundamentals. And the process of discovering them would be identical. We just need the chord formula in place, and we need the location, and we're good to go. But always, 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 the starting point will be that major scale. If I come back to the cheat sheet here, get rid of this, pull this up. We did that in the key of G. So we just needed the G, the B, the D, and the F sharp. And we manipulated that according to the formulas that you see down in the lower left-hand corner of the image. I'm hoping that makes sense to you guys. It is a perspective that may be remarkably new to you, but it is remarkably common in the music world to talk about things like this. In fact, if I played, let me get rid of the image, then I'm just going to open up for some questions here. Let's get rid of him. If I play the G major scale, and you count the notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, well, there's the 5th. That was just like this, way up here when we were doing that chord and then this chord. The G major 7, the G7, the G minor 7, the G minor 7 flat 5, the intervals remain the same. They come from not just that piece of paper, they come from you knowing your major scale. That's 1 octave, 2 octaves. This is the 1, that's the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 1. Whatever. And then you start again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. By the way, 5 is a D. 5 is a D. 5 is a D. It's the same everywhere. Oh my gosh, if you can get this stuff into your mind and have that little moment of, Oh, really? It's that simple? Totally, it is. It's getting you to play in the sandbox enough to spend time and think on this stuff before these connections jump at you. Yes, of course. Hey, I could build a short mini course for you, and I could go into more detail to help you understand it. It can be a bit challenging having you sit here for an hour and a half, and try to get it covered in one shot. But it's a starting point, and at least you've come to realize that once you've climbed one mountain, you realize there's a whole ton of other mountains that have to be climbed. But you can't see them until you climb one mountain. You got to get to the top of the first one, for the most part, to see the wealth of new mountains that are available to climb. You might not see them as easily when you're at the bottom of that first mountain. So it's one of those experiences. We've got to get you comfortable with it. So, and this is just one perspective of how chords can be built in terms of relating them back to a major scale. Fundamentally, and I'll just do this very briefly. Now, this may be hard to see because the print on here is a bit small, so I will leave the link here for you so you can download this if you want it. Let's go to the very top of the big image with all the keys in it and go to the C, the key of C. It's the very top of the image, and C is written in bold there. And you can see that the notes are C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. No mystery there. We already know that the key of C is the only key that has no sharps or flats in it. Cool? All right. Everything else has sharps or flats in it for one reason, and we'll talk about that another day. But if you want a C chord, you know this. You need a C, an E, and a G. You put those three notes together, and you use the C note as the root of those chords. If you look just above the key of C, sitting under the number 1, there's the word major. It's in very small print. It means that when you build a chord from the first note of the scale, i.e. C, E, G, the type of chord you're going to get is called a major chord. Now, why is it major? That's another discussion. You just have to remember it for now. The other discussion is not difficult. It's just not very valuable to you right now. It's just going to be major. If you go to the second note in the scale, which is D, and you repeat this process, you go D, skip the E, F, skip the G, A, you go D, F, A, you will make a D, and above the D is the word minor. You're going to make a D minor chord. So far, you have a C chord moving to a D minor chord. If we do the same process off the E note, we would need E, G, and B. This is all coming from the C scale. And you look above the note E, it's a minor again. And you do the same for F, would become an F major chord. You do the same for the G note, it'll be another major chord. You do the same for a minor chord, or for the A chord, off of the note A, and you'll get a minor chord. You do the same thing off of B, and you'll get a diminished chord, or a B diminished chord, and then you're back to C. And when you put all that information together, let me get rid of this. So I did the chords this way. I played C, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B diminished, and back to C. It actually sounds like its own little tune. You could do it this way. C, D minor, E minor, F, G, A minor, B diminished, and back to C again. And you can do it on any string set that you wish. It's all up to you. Those were all, that's a C, a D minor, E minor, F, and G. It's so cool when you make all that stuff happen. But the point here is that the other perspective of building chords comes right from harmonizing each note of the scale. My point here is this. For example, a G chord, I'm going to bring out the cheat sheet again. If you find the key of G, which is right under C, I've been telling you all throughout these two sessions, let's do a G chord, and they come, the G chord will come, the G major chord will come from the major scale. That's true. But if you go to, let's say, any other key that creates major chords, let's go to the number 4 at the top of this image, and then look down 3, yeah, it looks like 3 spaces. You can see that a G chord also exists in the key of D. And if you keep going down from the number 5, no, that one's already taken because that's from the key of C. Let's go to the key of F. No, not F. Let's go to the, key of F. Way at the bottom of the picture, you can see, if you look across, nope, that's not what I wanted. No, that's not what I wanted. Where did you go? Here. That's minor. I don't want that. I want you to see these things. The point here is that you can see that a G chord, a G major chord, can exist in other keys. That's where this perspective starts to reveal itself to you. And, not something you have to think about right now, but what I'm trying to say is a G chord doesn't just exist in the key of G. Yes, it will be the first chord in the key of G, so it's logical to use that scale, but it also exists in other keys. So it's a good little tool eventually for us to walk through, and this would take a number of sessions for you to get a good handle on, for sure. So anyway, I'm just going to take a moment here to put up the link. Hold on a second. Got that, and let me get this. I did have it there, but it didn't keep it for me. Let me see if it's still in memory. Yeah, there it is. So let's add that. So I just put that up. go.aws/ blah, 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 blah. If you click on that, you should go directly to the the chart, and then you can download it. Let's just test the sucker. See where it takes me. I'll let you guys test it. If you have trouble with the download, let me know, and I'll just send it off to you. Give me an email and let me know. But there we go. If you haven't had experience with 7th chords, this might be kind of cool for you to have had that insight. It's not hard stuff. You're just pulling material from the major scale fundamentally, and then manipulating it to create other types of chords. If we go, it's a shorthand way. It's a shorthand way of accessing other chord types. If we go the more formal theory route of doing it, then we need that big chart that I showed you. And if on some day you decide that's something you really would like to dig into, I'd be happy to do it. And we would walk through a handful of sharp keys and a handful of flat keys, and you'd see exactly the same process unfolding for each one of them. But I don't want to confuse you with that right now. My friends, do you have any questions on building some chords out? I'm going to go to the chat here. Let me know. What have I got? Yeah, I got the lost you. Now we're back. Yeah, all good. Thank you, Scott. You guys have the link there. Mountains, I'm still on the nursery slopes. Mr. Tony Stevens, you have to stop underrating yourself, sir. Look, the fact Let me go here. The fact that you guys have consistently showed up, the same crowd, mostly the same crowd, show up. You're telling me in no uncertain terms that something that I'm talking about or something that I'm doing is of some value to you, even when it's feels like it's over your head. Here's the thing. When things feel like they are over your head, then you contact me and you tell me, Steve, I love the work you're doing, but that one really it broke my brain. So help me out. And what I will do is I will refine a new approach to it to help you understand it better. Either I'll do that through email or I'll put up a new video, which I haven't done in a while, other than these live ones because they take time. Or I can do it in a number of ways. My point is here, I don't want you feeling like you're lost. If you're lost, I've done something incorrect in my head, in my mind. And it can be easy for me to think, oh, this makes perfect sense, what I'm presenting to you. Blah, blah, blah. But that's only because I know it. So when somebody knows stuff well, they often take for granted that other people know certain side little bits of it that I don't need to talk about. But that's not true. And so you guys need to remind me of this by letting me know. But that being said, any questions? Let me know. We need a good Q&A. Just got to push that sand around. Yep, you got it, my friend. You do just have to do it. There will be another book on the bookshelf of importance. I've got a ton of them down here at the bottom still to present. One of them is just called Do the Work by Stephen Pressfield. And he, at some point, it's not thick. These books are great because they're not heavy reads, but they're full of really cool, deep insight. He said in one spot, and I'm paraphrasing it here, there are people who call themselves guitarists who don't necessarily play a lot, and there are people that are guitarists. And essentially, the difference between the two, if I can put it that way, he's not talking about guitarists in the book. He used writers as the example. There are people who claim that they write, and there are people who write. And the difference between the two, there are people who claim they play guitar, and there are people who play guitar. The difference between the two is that the people who play guitar sit down and do the work. That's exactly what Scott is talking about. You gotta sit in the sandbox and get some shit done. YouTube. You gotta get it done. How you factor that into your structure is really up to you to be able to do it. But it has to be done. And I would encourage you to see it as like freedom. It's not something you have to sit and plug away at like a song. It's take a concept that somebody has shown you and push it around to some extent, just like we pushed the notes around in these chords. That's us playing in the sandbox, getting used to these ideas. Just because I showed it to you doesn't mean you know it yet. It just means you're familiar with it. That's all that it means. And that's never enough. You can't just be familiar with it. You have to go into it and make it work. So that's a good comment, Scott. Tony, that's why I've ordered that book. Yeah, it's a good one, man. And I'll have lots others that you might be interested in as well. So keep that going. Any other comments or questions? Looking forward to Sunday here. My mom has been in the hospital for about a week and a half. Well, a week anyway. And there is talk that she should be out maybe for the weekend, but maybe not. But if she is, I keep saying, well, let's hope it's on. You get to spend Sunday with us because it's going to be sunny and 9 whole degrees. My gosh, it's going to feel like spring for a change. So let's hope that that's happening. Okay, looks like we're okay with questions and such. Again, I'm always asking, let me know specific things you want me to cover. It doesn't mean I'll cover it specifically in the next topic, but I'm writing them down so I know what to cover at some point. Tony says, not now, but no doubt there will be. Awesome. That's probably the sentiment for most of you. Listen, guys, thanks again. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you showing up and supporting the channel by watching these videos. If you really think they're valuable and you know some people that could benefit from them, share them on. Let them know that I'm out here doing this and trying to help you guys make more sense out of guitar. You've probably noticed, just before I leave you, I don't spend a lot of time teaching specific songs. And the reason is very simple. Although lots of people do it on the website, technically you're not supposed to. It's not right. We should be allowed to teach songs with no problem. But the algorithm currently that YouTube has and the bots that they use puts copyright claims on your channel. And they're relatively harmful or harmless. I just don't want to build up a whole ton of them. So I've committed to teaching guitar ideas that many tunes might use, and maybe that's the way I should handle it, but not specific tunes on how to play. There's enough people out there that show you how to play this song or that song. You don't need me to do that. You can learn from lots of people. My job is to help you make sense of these concepts and how they're connected. And then hopefully on your own terms, you'll walk away with some ahas going, now it all makes sense. And I'm in a place where after hanging out with me for a while as a subscriber, then you can eventually you'll leave, you'll unsubscribe at some point. Everybody unsubscribes at some point, but you'll be well informed. That's my goal. And yep, you're right, Scott. That's what Ultimate Guitar is for. There's tons of people and tons of sites out there that show you how to play specific video songs. But things can get nasty because you're working with copyrighted material, and I just don't want to have to deal with all that. So in the meantime, listen, friends, let's enjoy our weekend, and I'll be back on Monday, 5 o'clock, with a new topic. I'll give it some thought, and feel free to send me your ideas as well. And for those of you that perhaps stumbled upon the channel and you like what you're seeing, why not subscribe and get some more juice from me? It's worth it. I will see you guys. It's bedtime for Tony. I'll see you guys on Monday. You have yourself a great weekend. Steve Dempster, Dempster Guitar Studio, out for now. Thanks, guys. Bye.